Hey, I'm Martin from our Leads. So in this video I'm going to explain step by step how to sell on Amazon. And if you happen to like the video, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Now we have a lot to cover, so let's get started. So the first thing I'd like to point out is that Amazon FBA, which is short for Fulfillment by Amazon, is not a business model unto itself. It actually is a certain way of order fulfillment where Amazon basically does the legwork for you. They handle first line support, send out the products to your customers, as well as providing the marketplace itself, so you don't have to spend a ton of marketing money to get people in front of your products. And besides the obvious convenience this represents, the big reason why this is so great is that you can start at any level. So whether you have $500, $5,000, or $50,000, you can start selling. So even though it's not a business model unto itself, it does facilitate the following three models of selling on Amazon. These are arbitrage, wholesale, and private label. Some would argue that dropshipping is one of them as well, but I think that it's a risk from an account health perspective, and I never recommend doing it. Now, with arbitrage, you buy a product at a retailer at a lower price than is listed on Amazon, and you try to sell it at a higher price on the Amazon marketplace. Wholesale is similar in many ways, but the quantities are way higher and you focus a lot of capital on a single listing. I usually tell people that it's a kind of a hybrid model sitting in between arbitrage and private label, as it kind of borrows from both methods of selling on Amazon. However, when people talk about Amazon FBA, they really mean private label. So let's start with that one. So most of the private label videos on YouTube are centered around finding products to sell on Amazon, or about the software which enables you to find these products. Thing is, however, that private label is much less about the product than you might initially think. Sure, it has to be made well, it has to be of a decent quality, but what makes it sell, really sell, is getting your sales and marketing right. Now, I have been in sales and marketing for well over a decade now, and I've seen time and time again that an inferior product is beating a better product simply because the marketing is done better. Now, the nature of the private label business in and of itself is not that difficult. Okay, you basically find a product on the Alibaba website, which is lower priced than the one you can find on Amazon. And I'm oversimplifying here, but what you basically do is you slap your own logo on it, do a bit of branding, and you try to sell it at that higher price. Now, in an effort to explain to you a bit better, I'm going to guide you through the process. Now, please keep in mind that you actually need to do a lot more work when it comes to picking a product. This is just explaining the steps to you. In this example, I'm going to pick foam rollers as the example product. And this is not at random, as it was one of the first products I ever tried to sell. And before you ask, no, it wasn't a great success. And the reason I failed was because I didn't understand what private label at its core really was. But more important, that there are things you really need to understand, again, on a fundamental level to have any of this work for you. But don't worry, I will touch upon that a bit later. Now, one of the key aspects of any successful listing is having the right keywords in place. And although I'm not going to do extensive keyword research for this particular video, I am going to cover some of the basics. And the first thing I always do is simply go to the Amazon website and type in the thing I want to sell, which in this case would be foam roller. But before I do that, I need to explain a bit more about the different types of keywords. And what you have to understand when it comes to keywords is that you have short tail and long tail keywords. Foam roller is an example of a short tail keyword. Now these type of keywords are very broad keywords. And unless you have a lot of money to spend, these are not going to work for you. Yes, you'll reach a very large audience, but it's such a generic term that it's highly unlikely that you reach potential customers that are going to buy that specific product. And just to put it in perspective, when you are looking for new shoes, I don't think you'll type in new shoes. Nobody does. As a matter of fact, most people, including me, and you probably as well, already have a type of shoe, brand, size, and whatever characteristic you can think of in mind, and tend to look for a specific type of shoe when you type in that keyword. So in your case, it might be comfortable Nike sneakers, comfortable white Nike sneakers. It's longer. It's not just white sneakers or sneakers. So this is where long tail keywords come in. These type of keywords are far more specific in nature than its short counterpart, and generally will not reach a large audience. But that's okay. It isn't supposed to. You see, long tail keywords are essentially the type of keywords you use to find what is called the target demographic that fits best with the product you're trying to sell. So, if we go back to the search bar, type in foam roller. So let's do that. Foam roller. But instead of hitting enter, we just leave it hanging. You'll see that Amazon offers you a few suggestions. And if we look at this list of suggestions, we see different levels of long tail keywords, such as 36-inch for muscles, deep tissue, for back pain. Now things like set, ball, hair are normally not the type of keywords I would look for, at least not as a main long tail keyword. I would add it. So I would maybe say foam roller or 36-inch foam roller set or 24-inch foam roller ball, whatever. But I won't use like foam roller ball as a word. So again, these are suggestions Amazon puts to you. And it means basically that a lot of people are looking for this specific thing. All right. So I think foam roller for physical therapy and exercise is probably too far niche down, but let's have a look at what it gives us. All right, because it is just one of the first ones, and it's pretty big, long tail, I mean. So let's click on it. So even though this is a very acceptable long tail keyword, you see that there are a lot of players in this market, and these players have solid BSR rankings as well, right? Like 263, 7, 91. These are not bad rankings. And, for me, the combination of these things tells me that it's going to be very hard competing in this market. However, remember what I said earlier about the fact that keywords are the key, and that long tail keywords are essentially, the key to success with this. Because if you change up the keywords, you get to see different listings. So let's open a new tab. So let's open another one. Okay, a fresh empty Amazon website. And let's type in high density, and not, let's say, deep tissue, because I saw it in one of the listings. So here you see it becomes longer, deep tissue, and I saw 36-inch in the previous one. 36-inch foam roller set. Okay, let's see what this gives us. Now, as you can see, even though it's pretty specified, pretty specific, you still have a lot of very solid ranked items in a generic sports and outdoors category. Right? Yeah, you see a big one here, like with a large BSR. And even this is acceptable if you have low variations. It will still sell a lot. Right? So, but what you have to keep in mind, and that was basically the point I'm trying to make, is that even though like these guys, like 321 Strong, they keep on popping up. So that will probably mean that they are your biggest competitor. If you decide to compete in this market. But you also see like different listings. So trigger point grid, I don't think I saw it here. See, so trigger point grid is not in there. Right, so depending on the keywords, the listings your customers will see changes. Right? Now, there is software that helps you do the keyword research and finding products you can still compete in. But I would urge you to do manual research at least once, because it really makes you understand the market a lot better from the ground up. Now, when it comes to researching keywords, you have tools like Merchant Words and Keyword Tool Dominator, but free options like Amazon's autocomplete we just used, as well as Google Trends, will get you a long way as well. Now, just so you see how it would work, I have this full version of Keyword Tool Dominator. So let's go there and type in foam roller. Hit the search button here. You see what it does. It basically gives you, it can give you like a lot of ideas. You might want to explore, right? Like these are good ones. Again, you see 36-inch. But a lot of these things, like deep tissue, I found in less than 5 minutes just looking at a couple of listings, right? Because I saw this one was a strong competitor. So deep tissue. So a lot of these things that software can do for you, and it can really help. I mean, I'm not slagging anything off, but a lot of the things these software can do, you can basically do yourself as well. But you need to invest the time. So anyway, as I'm reaching a point where I'm starting to bore even myself talking about keywords, I am going to move on. However, if you have any more questions, please ask them in the comments down below or reach out to me via the chat box on our website. So, for argument's sake, let's assume we're going to move ahead with this foam roller idea. Now, before we do so, I really mean this, I really want to re-emphasize that this is just me explaining how all of this works. In reality, you have to look for a specific type of foam roller with a specific material, size, density, basically based on the product research you did. And I would say that it's not out of the ordinary to spend 4, 6, or even 10 weeks on product research. Okay? So with that out of the way, let's head over to the Alibaba website. So when you're on Alibaba, you'll see an interface that looks very similar to that of Amazon. And just like on Amazon, I'm going to type in foam roller in the main bar on top here. So foam roller, hit enter. So the first thing I do here is I check this little trade assurance box. And what it basically is, it's an insurance that protects your order. But only if you make payment through the Alibaba website. So please never make a payment outside of this system. You can consider doing this later on when you've built a relationship with the supplier, but even then I would see no obvious reason why you should move away from this platform. Now another thing I highly recommend is making use of an agent who lives in China. An agent is someone who can check your products during the manufacturing process, check up on shipments, and in some cases even find better suppliers than the Alibaba site has to offer you. Now I hardly pay any attention to this verified supplier badge. To me it's just a participation badge really, because someone from Alibaba shows up at their site every year or so, ask if they're a supplier, and then go on their merry way. It doesn't indicate a quality of service nor goods, so it's meaningless. What I do is sort by transaction level, as it normally brings up solid suppliers where the risk is very low that the product you'll get is bad. So you can do that here. Now, needless to say, you always need to order samples, but at least the initial risk will be very low. Now, when you scroll down the list, you'll notice that most of them have a minimum order quantity. Now, I wouldn't worry too much about this, as everything is negotiable, within reason, obviously. So what I tend to do is I ask for 5 quotes, and from each of them I ask the price for a couple of 100 units, as well as a couple of 1,000 units. This way you can check your wiggle room, or their wiggle room. Now, you have to be smart about this, so what I normally do, and you are free to use this tactic as well, is the following. First, I calculate roughly how much units I would need for launch, as well as to maintain stock for 3 or 4 months. So let's just say that I would need, let's say 600 foam rollers. Now what I would then do is ask the suppliers for a price for 300 and a price for 3,000 units. Now generally speaking, the price for 3,000 units is lower than it is for 300 units. Also, make sure to ask if shipping is included in the price, as that can really mess you up if you forget that. Now, if you get this price, what I would then do is ask if they can do the lower price, so the 3,000 unit price, and can apply it for 600 units. Now, the reason I initially don't ask for a price for 600 and 6,000 units, and then ask for the lower price for the 600, is because it feels to the supplier as if they're getting lowballed. Whereas if you ask for 300 and 3,000, 600 on a psychological level doesn't seem that bad. And I found that they are far more inclined to give you that better price. Call it the art of compromise, if you will, even if it's not real. Now, as to what price is acceptable, I would ballpark a single foam roller around $17 selling price on Amazon. Now, assuming you do FBA, this probably boils down to around $8 in FBA fees, leaving you with a subtotal of $9. So given these numbers, I would say that you need to drive the price down to about $3 per unit, including shipping. And again, I'm just ballparking the figures here. Now, as said earlier, before you even think of ordering product, you need to do a lot of research. Because in a way, product research is the foundation, and everything flows from there. Now, even though there are many things you need to investigate, these are the important ones. So, number one, identifying key competitors and level of competition. 2. Quality of the competition's product. Now, the underlying purpose being, if you see a way of improving upon what's already out there, which is also something customers are asking for, then you have a product worth selling. Number 3, price development over an extended period of time. So the past, and I would say from the moment you start investigating, let's say 4 or 6 weeks, just monitoring your competition's price. And 4, life cycle of the product. Is it a fad or does it have longevity? Is it seasonal or can you sell it all year round? And most important, is it nearing end of life? Think about fidget spinners, roller skates. They all had their little time in the sun, but there came a time when they were not popular anymore. Oh, and before I forget, you need to check up on sales volume as well, as knowing how much it sells is pretty important. So to give you a bit of an idea, I'm going to show you very quickly how you would approach this research. So the first thing I would do is analyze the competition. So in this example, I have picked this 321 strong listing. Now, just by glossing over the listing, I immediately have a few ideas on how to improve upon this product. Or at least a couple of ideas to test out for sure. So the first thing that catches my eye is that they put the brand name in front. Here on the title. Now, unless you're a big brand like perhaps Nike or Coca-Cola, I wouldn't do this. The reason being that this is the place where you want to place your keywords. This is the main place. Here you want to put your main keywords. Now again, you need to do your keyword research first, but let's say for argument's sake that high density deep tissue 36-inch foam roller set is a good long tail keyword that ranks well. Then you should put that in the title of the listing. And if you're really hung up on having your brand name in there, then perhaps put it at the end. Now looking at the bullet points, and that's this section, I think things can be improved as well. And the main thing I would point out here is to either put keywords in or something that invokes an emotion or feeling. So the first bullet point could be mimics the therapist's hand, followed by the technical explanation. The second one could start like easy to use for beginners, followed by, again, the technical explanation. Now I haven't put a lot of research into this particular product, but there is definitely a lot that can be improved on the bullet points alone. These are a couple of things I just thought up. Easy to use for beginners, ideal recovery tool, travel friendly or low weight, patented design which mimics therapist's hand, very robust and durable, 3-year warranty, free ebook, full of easy to follow instructions. Now, looking at these images, and I'm going through all of them, there's room for improvement as well. Now, the main image is okay, nothing wrong with it. But for the second image, I would have like a lifestyle photo, like this one, which would feature a smiling model. Because this one isn't very happy, I think. But what the main image did, is it did give me a great idea. And instead of an ebook, I thought of maybe to include an app or web portal with all the exercises in a video format. Now, I realize this would cost a lot more money than an ebook, but in a saturated market like this, I think it will be a major point of differentiation if you can pull this off. And it may even win you that market niche. Now, speaking of differentiation, which is by the way nothing more than adding value to a product that doesn't exist in any of the current offering. So speaking of differentiation, if you go to the customer reviews, so let me scroll down there, and I always have to look where it is, one moment. Here. So what you can do when you check the customer reviews, you can check all the negative reviews and see if you can use any of the complaints to improve your product. Now also be sure to check the positive reviews to make sure you include things that already work well. Right? So check the negative reviews to find improvements and use the positive reviews to basically make sure you have those stuff as well. Now what you should also check is the search trend for the product. And the tool I use for that is called Google Trends. So let's dive into it. If I type in foam roller, so let's do that. Foam roller. You'll see that the search trend is pretty stable over the past 12 months, right? Now, because if you kind of take the heart of it here, you would drag a line, you know, it's pretty stable. It doesn't go down or it doesn't go up very hard, right? So it's stable, it's great. Now let us check, instead of the 12 months, let us check the last 5 years. And again, from what I can tell here, it's pretty stable. It doesn't go down and it doesn't go up. Now ideally you want to have a product that goes up slowly over time. But this is good as well. You don't want peaks or drops, right? You want a stable growing product because you're going to invest a lot of time in marketing, developing your product. So you don't want something that is gone in a couple of weeks or is already on the downhill, right? So again, very stable product. Now, to put this in perspective, let's type in fidget spinner and see what that gives us. Now, as you can see, this is a clear sign of a hype, right? It spikes up very fast and it goes down very fast as well. And I'm sorry to say that I think that many sellers probably lost a lot of money here because they failed to see the trend, right? Because again, if you go to, let's say, the past 12 months and you happen to look in this time frame, it might look like pretty stable or even going slightly up. So that's why I always check longer periods, just to make sure you're not in this bubble zone, right? So what you do is you collect all of this data, as well as things like price development and sales velocity, and you put it in an Excel sheet and track this on a 1-week interval for about 6 to 8 weeks. Now, as mentioned before, you have software which can help with that, like Helium 10, Jungle Scout, or Amazile. But for your first product, I would recommend doing as much by hand as you can, because that will really help you understand how it all works on a fundamental level. So how the numbers relate to the listing, and it gives you a better understanding if you have done it by hand first. Now, before we move on, I want you to know that we can help you build your Amazon business. So please head over to www.oleads.com and have a look at our training, coaching, and leads. Now, what you have to keep in mind is that this is work you need to do before you get started. What remains will take as much, if not more, of your time. Think of things like designing your packaging, logos, building websites, setting up social media accounts, paying a lawyer at some point to get your trademark, finding influencers. And I'm not even talking about getting your product ranked once your inventory lands at an FBA warehouse. Because even though your competition is ranking on page 1 for certain keywords, you most certainly will not. As a matter of fact, your initial BSR will be undefined, which is Amazon's sweet way of saying that you're not even on a BSR radar. Now, software like Viral Launch can help you with this, as well as a pool of micro-influencers, if you can find them. And next to that, you need to do a lot of marketing. Now, initially, this will be most likely PPC campaigns on the Amazon platform itself. But later on, you're talking about Google Ads, Facebook marketing, and all that kind of stuff. Again, I want to re-emphasize that you're building a brand here, a company, if you will. And it really can take years before you find success, if you find it at all. It's not easy and it's not quick. Now, if you would ask me whether or not you should start a private label business, then based on my experience and knowledge about selling on Amazon, I would argue the following. If you do not possess all of the following 3 things, it doesn't make sense to start with private label. Number 1, do you have $10,000 to burn? And I do mean it almost quite literally, because it is money you have to invest just to get the ball rolling. And by no means does it guarantee you any level of success, so you have to be comfortable losing this amount of money. Now, some would argue that you can do it with much less. However, the success stories of those can be counted on one hand, as it means you have to pick a super cheap, simple product, and therefore you will be in the lower end of the market with a lot of competition. Number 2, do you know the ins and outs of the Amazon system? Because if you cannot even run a report or know how PPC works, then how will you manage your business? Okay? And last but not least, you need to understand marketing. Now, this means from keywords research to SEO as well as SEA, which means search engine advertising. But to summarize, you need to be well versed in digital marketing. Now, if all of these things are not a problem for you, then I would say good luck with your private label business. Now, chances are that you're not falling into this category of people. So what then? My advice to anyone getting started selling on Amazon or e-commerce in general would be to start with arbitrage. Now, I know it may sound self-serving as we offer training ourselves in arbitrage, but I can honestly say that even if you don't choose any of our services, you will be better off doing arbitrage. Because even if you fail doing arbitrage, you may lose a couple of $100. With private label, this goes well into the thousands. I'm not even counting time here, just the money. Now, all of what I've been talking about ties into what I said earlier about failing with those foam rollers, bloody foam rollers. Because I didn't really understand Amazon at that time and I only partly understood digital marketing. Now, I did have the money fortunately, but even throwing money against this particular problem didn't make it a success. Couldn't make it a success even. But that wasn't what made me fail initially. What ultimately had me fail, and this is very important, was the fact that I had no affinity, no passion about foam rollers. I didn't have deep knowledge about the product, didn't understand the market nor its users on a fundamental level. And that is why you need to find something that is close to you, especially with the first product you try to launch. Now this leads me to the point of knowing your product and the market it is placed in. Now whether you do arbitrage, wholesale or private label, all of them have software to help you out. So you have Tactical Arbitrage or FBA Wizard when it comes to sourcing product for arbitrage. And if you do private label, having products like Helium 10, Jungle Scout or Viral Launch can help you with product research and launch. What you have to realize, however, is that even though these tools are great, in the end they are just that, tools. And that gray matter inside of your skull should take point in all of this. And I would argue that you really need to invest time in learning as much as you can about the market you try to sell in. Because that helps you put the numbers the software gives you in the right perspective. Now, to give you an example, the other day I got a question from one of my students whether or not they should buy a $15 Nintendo 64 game and sell it on Amazon for $39.95. Now the numbers themselves look great. The BSR was decent, not much competition, no variations. However, if you even have a modicum, a tiny bit of knowledge about the computer games industry, you would understand that this deal is probably not going to be very realistic. Because the Nintendo 64 is a very old console and no one is going to buy this game. Even if all the numbers, if all the software tells you it will. So in a way, you need to develop a certain common sense when it comes to selling on Amazon. But common sense is a relative term. In this case, relative to the market you're selling in. And this example, the principles of this example rather, would apply to private label as well. And I would even go a step further and say that if you're doing your very first product launch, your very first private label product, then try and find a product that is close to you and your interests. Because it will give you an edge compared to most of your competitors, as it is very likely you will already have developed this common sense. And because you're passionate about it, you can work longer and harder on it. Because you like what you're doing. I mean, if I grab back at that foam roller example, it should be clear that you really need to understand and have a passion for these products and the market itself as well, if you ever want to be successful in it. I personally never care that much for those foam rollers, so in the end working on it became a drag. Now another problem was, and by the looks of it still is the fact that there are too many sellers on Amazon trying to sell these foam rollers. And this makes it even harder to compete. And there is no doubt in my mind that Amazon is becoming saturated. Now, in case you don't know what it means, saturation of a market means that there are more competitors in there than the market they operate in can sustain. Or to put it more plainly, there is more supply than there is demand. However, in the case of Amazon, it's only partly true, as not everything is being saturated equally. And the best way I can explain this is by using this pyramid, which in itself is a simple representation of the Amazon marketplace. Now, if you look at the top, you have the high-end portion of the market, the expert tier, if you will. Here you have high-value items sold by the few to the few, and it often concerns highly specialized market niches that require a very specific knowledge for you to be able to successfully sell in it. Now, one below there, you have the all-round tier. Now, the specialization required is not as high as the top tier, and the market is not as narrow, but you still need to have some skill, and the products themselves tend to be somewhat complex. Not as complex as the high-end tier or the expert tier, but still more complex than most products. Now, what follows is the middle segment, which in Amazon terms means that you are basically ungated for more than you started out with when you opened your seller account. Now, you don't really need to have that much knowledge, but at least you can sell in less competitive categories, which means you're getting better margins and will grow more quickly. Now, lastly, you'll have the lower tier of the market, and this is where you basically start out when you just open your seller account. Now, as saturation goes, the lower tier, like the lowest, is where most of the saturation happens. Not much saturation happens even in the middle segment of the market, simply because most sellers who start selling on Amazon quit before they get access to this tier. Now, another reason why saturation in and of itself doesn't really matter is because Amazon is growing with double-digit percentages each year. Now, granted, this growth happens more in the upper tiers than they happen in the lower tiers. However, it does compensate for something. The real problem, however, does not lie with saturation of the Amazon marketplace. Instead, the big problem you will face is the fact that it is maturing. Now, what I mean by that is that big sellers are consolidating the market, and due to their market share and sheer size, it becomes hard to compete in more and more categories each year. On top of that, there are technological developments like machine learning or AI, which I believe will at some point revolutionize the market and put anyone except some very big players out of business. So, having digested all of this, you might wonder why on earth anyone would even think about selling on Amazon. And although I understand your hesitation at this point, I would argue a different one. And that is, why on earth would you put all of your time and effort working for someone else? Now don't get me wrong, I'm not one of those people who will tell you that you should fire your boss at all costs and that it is worthless to work for someone else. As a matter of fact, I would advise anyone to start as a regular employee because I think a regular job helps you develop skills and teach you valuable lessons. However, the time is long gone when a company would hire you for life and give you a golden handshake when you go into retirement. Nowadays, if the profits drop even 1% point, you can pack your things. So that safety and security people talk about when talking about having a job, to me at least, is a bit of an illusion. But looking beyond that, I think you owe it to yourself to at least try and build a business once in your life. And when it comes down to it, Amazon can still be worth your while. You just have to be willing to put in the work and let go of the idea that it will be easy or quick. As said earlier, if you're new to all this, then I would advise you to start with arbitrage. And if you are smart, you buy into a course which will teach you the basics. Now obviously, I hope you pick ours, but if you are more comfortable with another, go for that one. But I think that it's absolute folly to think that you can just run in head first without any knowledge and magically make a lot of money. Sure, you will learn from the mistakes you make, but these mistakes can leave you in the poorhouse as well. Now once you've sold on Amazon for a year or two, doing arbitrage, and assuming you have had a modicum of success, and are probably ungated for many categories, understand the Amazon system, as well as having the capital to invest time and money into learning digital marketing, then, and only then, you should start building a private label brand. So I hope you found this video helpful, and if that's the case, I would really appreciate it if you like the video and subscribe to our channel. Also, don't forget to have a look at the links in the description down below to see how we can help you on your Amazon journey. Thank you so much for watching this video, and see you in the next one.